And the Trump administration is urging U.S. citizens to leave Kuwait and has suspended operations at the U.S. embassy there. This comes after an Iranian drone killed 6 American service members in Kuwait on Sunday. Joining me now to discuss the latest developments in the war in Iran are our panelists, Tom Speciale, former senior advisor to the Director of National Intelligence for National Counterintelligence and Security Center, Ricoh Danielson, a U.S. Army combat veteran and national security expert, and Kate Monroe, a retired U.S. Marine Corps intelligence and analyst. Great to have everybody with us. So the State Department says it's suspending operations at that embassy in Kuwait where 6 Americans were killed. This is the country, where those troops were killed by that drone on Sunday. Tom, the Trump administration urging U.S. citizens to leave. Nearly 20,000 Americans have already returned home from the Middle East. What does this say about the complexity of the situation on the front lines?
Well, the truth is this is a pretty normal practice of evacuation, of voluntary evacuation of U.S. citizens in the region in a time of crisis. It's a pretty common practice to do that. I think closing the embassy in Kuwait, it's maybe viewed as a more vulnerable embassy in the region, and so that might be a primary target. And so, as such, they might, discontinue the operations there at the Kuwaiti embassy. But that isn't gonna really stop us from doing anything. All that does is mean that more than likely they've carried out what they needed to get the American citizens out of Kuwait, all those that were voluntarily leaving.
Ricoh, what resources and coordination are required to evacuate Americans stranded abroad?
Usually the protocol to evacuate people such as Americans in different areas like Egypt, Kuwait, and whatnot, you got C-17s, you got Chinooks, you have fast movers and fast shakers to get people out of there as fast as they can. Private charter jets as well. They charter like anywhere from a Delta, American Airlines, the big jumbo jets, the Boeing 757s, and the coordination behind that, bringing everyone to the center point of a consulate, and also an embassy, if you will, and then to get them out of there ASAP. Flights will probably be going around the clock, and make sure that the families are squared away and also in safe haven.
And Kate, what are the potential risks for U.S. personnel and civilians remaining in Kuwait as we speak?
I mean, there's always going to be risk, but we have a lot of dominance over that entire area right now. I don't see a lot more happening in that region, but certainly if you can get out, you should get out. If we're offering you a path to get back to this country expeditiously, you should probably take us up on that. Remain safe, head on a swivel. But, no matter where you are, you could be in Austin, Texas, in the United States and not be safe. You could be anywhere in the world. I think that we make sometimes a bigger thing than things really are. I think that is not the biggest area that people need to be worried about. I think, when you look at the embassy closing, it could be misread as there's more danger. As the other panelists have said, they probably executed their purpose there and are moving on to the next.
Now, CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper speaking to reporters at the Pentagon today, touting the success of Operation Epic Fury. It might have actually been in CENTCOM in Tampa. Let's have a listen.
And if I just look back over the last 24 hours of the operation compared to where we were at its start, ballistic missile attacks have decreased by 90% since day one. Drone attacks have decreased by 83% since day one. So we're not just hitting what they have, we're destroying their ability to rebuild. And so as we transition to the next phase of this operation, we will systemically dismantle Iran's missile production capability for the future, and that's absolutely in progress.
Now, Tom, how far along are we, in your opinion, in degrading Iran's capacity to conduct strikes and provoke chaos in the region?
I think that we're much further along probably than we expected. A lot of people have said that this is, you hear people say this is an Israeli plan. This is actually a plan that was proposed all the way back in 2013 before President Trump was even in office. There were those of us at the Defense Intelligence Agency that referred to it as the Iranian Castration War Plan, which was to essentially eliminate all of their power projection capability. If you eliminated their ability to threaten the region, and at the same time cripple their ability to enable their proxies and partners, then you could really have a major strategic effect on the region, which was something that previous presidents were hesitant to do because they just didn't have the intestinal fortitude to strike the IRGC headquarters, the supreme leader, and all of the leadership, which has been carried out, I believe, magnificently by the U.S. military and the Israeli military. I really can't say how far along they are, but I would say that they are way ahead of where they anticipated. It was probably easier to do. We always kind of over plan a situation like this. I participated in this planning for over 6 years. We always over plan, and I think that this was meticulously planned, and I think that they ran into very little resistance. And as such, the Iranian regime's days are clearly numbered, and we're hoping that the Iranian people, in particular the Artesh, the Iranian army, will move to bring peace to the region by essentially joining forces with the Iranian people and taking out the Iranian regime permanently.
Ricoh, how isolated does the regime, the Iranian regime, feel right now? And are there any potential allies in the region that they might have that we should be watching out for? And with the help of Israel and allies in the region, what is the timeline, do you think, for accomplishing the president's strategic objectives?
Yeah, one thing I always learned in Iraq and Afghanistan, no matter how small the contingency is, never underestimate your enemy. They do have their proxies, Hezbollah, ISIS, Al-Qaeda still in the regions. They're carrying out their attacks. We saw that when Hezbollah launched off a few missiles to Israel and our specific bases up there as well. So we should never underestimate them. Their days are numbered for sure. The United States is for sure showing them what time it is and giving them, a fruit for the punch and whatnot. The other thing is we have to be very, very mindful is that we haven't broken out the shock and awe just yet. So this is just light work. And I believe the United States is actually making some very good progress. The United States military has showed itself very, very professionally and extremely well. And I think strategically speaking, you'll more than likely either see a demolishment of a complete enterprise of a whole country's military, or they're going to come to a deal here shortly.
Kate, if you want to remind us what shock and awe might look like, and the White House yet to rule out the possibility of sending ground troops to the Middle East, what do you think the likelihood of that might be?
I don't know that we're going to have to get boots on the ground. We've been very effective from the sky. Look at what we were able to do. Zip back the tape a little bit to Venezuela. We completely overtook Maduro, got him all the way back to the country before people were waking up, for breakfast. And they warned everyone in that region, hey, these people have tech. They have a might and a will that is just, you can't even imagine. And apparently the rest of the world didn't listen because, Iran, they tried us on, this whole death to America that the Ayatollah has been shouting for the last almost 5 decades, I think was ended pretty quickly. There's been a lot of FA in the world, not a lot of FO. We finally have a president that's willing to stand his ground and draw hard lines. And I think the rest of the world is going to snap too. I think, we don't want to underestimate our enemy. They should not be underestimating us. People don't understand the size and the might and the will of our American soldiers, our American men and women. As a Marine Corps veteran, I am all for the shock and awe. The epic fury is sort of an extension of, what happened in previous times. But I will say this, I'm kind of mad that we're late to the party, that we let it go on this long, that we had previous administrations like Obama sending them billions of dollars for a nuclear deal, basically funding the rest of their side of the war fruitlessly, apparently. So I'm all for us staying up in the sky, staying on our boats, and absolutely helping them find out that we are not going to take it.
Now, the president telling Axios today that he needs to be personally involved in picking Iran's next leader, whoever that might be. He also weighed in on the possible succession after the Ayatollah was killed, saying Khamenei's son would be off limits. So, Tom, who's next in line for the job, given that much of the current Iranian leadership has been eliminated?
My understanding is that that Khomeini's son has said that he's not really interested in the position, and I think that that's probably a good decision on his part. I think that they're going to punch down all the way to the point where they're going to be forced to put up a moderate of some kind to lead the country forward. I just don't foresee I just don't foresee a radical leader rising in any way, shape, or form. I think it's impossible to know who that's going to be. One of the things I would say is that the intelligence community is watching very closely. Human, SIGINT, they're watching everything on what limited communications are inside Iran to see who might rise to the top. I think it's funny that that the president says he wants to be involved in this election. That's the way Trump talks. I mean, clearly the Iranian people are going to pick somebody, but it's going to have to meet the approval of the international community. The Iranians have at this point attacked all of their neighbors, and so now what they've done is they've invited the GCC countries to participate in this to remove the regime. And I think that we're going to see a very different Iran and really a very different Middle East. And I think that this is going to be a huge thing for ourselves and for our children for the next 30 years. I think that we're going to have probably the best chance we've ever had in our lifetime for real peace in the Middle East with the removal of this bloodthirsty regime in Iran.
Ricoh, what kind of leader do you think would best represent the Iranian people? We've seen diasporas in the United States, Los Angeles, a lot of Iranian dissidents and folks there, as well as in Toronto, Canada, taking to the streets, really passionate about the cause. What do you think most Iranians want?
So when you look at what Iranians want and need, the biggest thing is that it has to be somebody of the people, somebody who's going to bring the power back to the people, provide them true education, opportunity, economic growth, and also sustainability, along with religious growth and also perseverance. I think once they find that leader within their ranks or within their community, is going to be very, very beneficial for them. At some point back in the 80s, 90s, Iran was doing pretty decent. If we can bring them back to that succession rate and show them, hey, this is what happens when you put a good leader in place. You can't just have somebody with rule totalitarianism, right? Somebody who's going to be about the people and for the people. So I believe that someone, hopefully a maverick of some sort, will show up.
Unfortunately, we do have to leave it there. Tom Speciale, Ricoh Danielson, Kate Monroe, really appreciate you all joining us.